I live my life a quarter mile at a time. That line became a creed back in 2001. And here we are, a quarter century later, still talking about the saga it launched. Let's rewind and see how Fast and Furious became the most unlikely franchise in movie history. In this video, we're breaking down the twists and turns that kept it alive. Why Vin Diesel turned down Too Fast, Too Furious, why neither Dom nor Brian starred in Tokyo Drift, the deal that brought Vin back for his surprise cameo, and how Paul Walker's legacy reshaped the series forever. We'll also look at how the franchise evolved from underground street racing to billion-dollar blockbusters and where it's heading in its final chapter. Let's jump right into this. Welcome back to Just Driven. June 22nd, 2001, The Fast and the Furious hits theaters with a budget of around $38 million. It goes on to make over $200 million worldwide. And it isn't just the action that grabs audiences. It's the culture, the late night meets, the tuner cars, the nitrous, the family vibe. The line, "I live my life a quarter mile at a time," becomes a creed. But here's where the road forks. After the first film blew up, Universal wanted a quick sequel. Vin Diesel turned down a reported $20 to $25 million payday because, in his words, the script wasn't right. He said it felt like the old Hollywood formula, slap a brand name on a new story instead of a true continuation. That's how we ended up with Too Fast, Too Furious in 2003 without Vin, and later Tokyo Drift in 2006 with either Vin or Paul as leads. Screenwriter Chris Morgan has said his original pitch centered on Dom in Tokyo, but the studio pivoted to a younger high school-driven story. That gave us Sean Boswell, Lucas Black's character, and the drift scene in Japan. Paul later summed up his absence from that film as politics, studio stuff, a regime decision. Universal still wanted a connection though, so they courted Vin for a cameo at the very end of Tokyo Drift. Vin agreed, but interestingly, not for money, but rather for the rights to his Riddick characters and franchise, a savvy barter that also realigned his influence on Fast. The cameo lit up test screenings and convinced the studio to reunite the original family. So during those years between 2003 and 2009, Paul Walker stayed busy. Timeline in 2003, Into the Blue in 2005, Eight Below and Running Scared in 2006, The Death and Life of Bobby Z in 2007, The Lazarus Project in 2008. But he'd grown skeptical that the Fast series still had an audience. It actually took Vin Diesel personally calling him to say, "This time it's a true sequel. Street racing, family back at the center." Paul agreed and said yes. The gap between Tokyo Drift in 2006 and Fast and Furious in 2009 came down to a few things. That creative reset to bring Dom, Brian, Letty, and Mia back, deal making to expand Vin's creative role after his cameo, Justin Lin and Chris Morgan re-engineering the timeline so Han's story could continue, and cast schedules. The result was Fast and Furious in 2009, the first full reunion and a real turning point. After Tokyo Drift, the franchise could have stalled. New characters, no Dom, no Brian. The soul was kind of missing. Fast and Furious 2009 mattered because it brought everyone back. Vin Diesel, Paul Walker, Michelle Rodriguez, Jordana Brewster, the original family reunited. That film shifted the tone. It wasn't just pink slips and quarter miles anymore. It was international cartels smuggling across the border and Dom's quest for revenge after Letty's supposed death. Darker, heavier, more action-focused. But if that film laid the groundwork, Fast 5 in 2011 slammed the nitrous button. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson entered the franchise as Luke Hobbs, the relentless federal agent who could finally go toe-to-toe with Vin Diesel. He was intense, sweaty, and magnetic. Fans ate it up. Johnson's presence recharged the series at the perfect moment. The crew expanded too. Roman Pierce and Tej Parker returned from Too Fast, Too Furious. Han was brought back into the timeline. Giselle rejoined after being introduced in the fourth film. Even Vince came back from the original. Suddenly, the cast was assembled like an Avengers-style crew. And the tone shifted into a full-on heist film. Rio de Janeiro as a backdrop, the planning, the job, the final dragging a vault through the streets. instantly iconic. It was no longer cops versus racers, it was the family versus the world. Street culture was still in the DNA, but the spectacle took center stage. Gunfights, rooftop chases, a vault smashing through buildings, it rebranded the series into a global blockbuster that could compete with Mission Impossible and even Bond.
This just went from Mission Impossible to Mission and freaking Sanity.
The box office told the story. Fast and Furious in 2009 made $360 million worldwide. Fast 5, $626 million. Critics praised it as the best entry yet. Fans loved the expanded crew dynamic. This was the moment Fast and Furious reinvented itself. And one of the biggest reasons the franchise survived for 25 years wasn't just the cars, it was the characters. Dom started out as a street racer and outlaw stealing DVD players. By Fast 5, he had evolved into a mythic leader, a protector, a father. Brian O'Connor went from undercover cop to loyal brother, husband, and father himself. His arc was redemption and belonging. Then came tragedy. Paul Walker's accident in 2013 devastated fans worldwide. Universal faced the question, how do you finish Furious 7 without erasing Brian's soul? They brought in Paul's brothers as stand-ins, used CGI, and gave Brian the ending he deserved. Not killed off, not erased, but retired happily with Mia and their son. That fork in the road scene with Dom remains as one of the most emotional moments in blockbuster history. It wasn't just a goodbye to Brian, it was a goodbye to Paul. Letty's arc became one of resilience. From her death to her amnesia to reclaiming her identity, she became Dom's equal.
Alpha. Mrs. Alpha.
Mia grounded the chaos carrying Brian's presence after Paul's passing. Roman and Tej evolved into comic relief.
Is it gonna be Revenge of the Nerds or The Dark Knight?
And tech gurus. Han grew into a fan favorite, so beloved that fans demanded his resurrection in Fast 9. Hobbs and Shaw brought such chemistry that they spun off into their own billion-dollar story and extension of this franchise. But through it all, the theme was family, sometimes memed, sometimes mocked, but never hollow. Family was always the glue.
Family. It's family. I got family.
And that brings us to the big debate. What defines Fast and Furious today? The gritty realism of the early films or the jaw-dropping spectacle of the later ones? The roots were grounded. Tuner cars, pink slips, quarter-mile races, Civics under semis. That authenticity hooked real car culture fans. But the spectacle grew. Vaults through Rio, tanks on highways, hypercars leaping skyscrapers, and a Pontiac Fiero in outer space. Some fans love the insanity, the one-upmanship, the adrenaline. Others miss the garage nights and neon-lit streets. So Universal faces the challenge of balancing both. They can't erase 9 films of lore, cyber terrorists, submarines, spy missions, but they can't forget where it started either. The finale has to find that balance. One last outrageous set piece? Yes, but also a street race, a garage scene, a family barbecue. And maybe it's not Dom or Brian behind the wheel this time. They'd be pushing 50 or 60. Harder to buy as underground street racers, but their kids, that makes sense. Dom's son and Brian's son would be around 16 or 17. That's old enough to drive, just old enough to carry the torch. Imagine them stepping up at a Race Wars event, mentored and cheered on by their parents. For longtime fans, that would feel like coming full circle. A spark of nostalgia and realism blended with legacy. One final Race Wars, Dom behind the wheel of his Charger for a symbolic moment, Letty and Mia side by side, Han at the line, and next to them, the kids, proving the next generation is ready. That's how you honor both the spectacle and the roots. Because this franchise has always been about evolution, from tuner culture to global spectacle, from cops and racers to superheroes saving the world. And now, one last time, it has to evolve into a finale that unites every fan. 25 years later, here we are, the final chapter, not just another blockbuster, but a cultural moment. Vin Diesel has said the finale is targeting April 2027 with 3 promises. Back to Los Angeles, back to car culture, and Brian O'Connor returns. Production is still in motion, supposedly. Some actors like Jason Momoa have admitted they haven't even seen a script yet. Timelines may shift. And here's the flashpoint. Vin has promised the return of Brian. But how? Likely a hybrid of stand-ins, archival footage, and CGI as they did in Furious 7. However it's done, fans will judge not just how it looks, but how respectful it feels. And perhaps the most meaningful choice would be to give Brian a true farewell. It's been over a decade since Paul's passing, and the finale could honor his legacy with a moment of real weight. Imagine Brian making the ultimate sacrifice, heroic, deeply tied to family, and written with purpose. Painful, yes, but offering the kind of closure that feels worthy of both the character and the man who brought him to life. From that loss, the story could evolve. Brian's son and Dom's son, now teenagers, stepping up not just to race, but to carry the torch. Maybe even uniting to uncover who was responsible for Brian's death. That kind of arc could bring weight, respect, and a finale that truly feels like family. Universal is staging a massive celebration too. Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift, a new roller coaster at Universal Studios Hollywood, opens in 2026. They're planning tours, fan events, and global celebrations. It's not just an ending, it's a send-off cementing this saga as multi-generational. But this finale isn't just about logistics or stunts, it's about memory. The kids who saw the first film in 2001 are adults now. Some build cars, some design parts, some share the films with their own children. That's why this matters. For those of us who've lived alongside these movies, who remembered midnight screenings, who keep the Charger, Supra, or Skyline replicas in warehouses, this isn't just a blockbuster, it's a goodbye, a celebration, and maybe even a healing moment. And maybe that goodbye includes Brian's sacrifice, a farewell written with heart, and then a passing of the keys to Dom's son, to Brian's son, to the next generation. That would honor Paul, give Brian closure, and unite the fans in one last family moment. So here's my ask. As the finale approaches, don't just show up for the fireworks, show up for the soul, but demand both. Share your memories in the comments. Tell Universal what closure means to you. Because when the credits roll, we don't just want another action movie, we want to feel like we were part of one last family dinner. We want to believe those characters go on living, that their stories continue beyond the screen. And that's what humanity is, passing the torch, one generation stepping aside while another takes the wheel. The best stories let us imagine what happens next. They live on in our minds, long after the credits roll. That's the legacy of the Fast and the Furious. And if Universal delivers that kind of ending, it won't just be a finale, it'll be a story that lives on inside of us, long after the engines go quiet. All right, guys, so this is going to be a wrap on this video. Thanks so much for staying with us. If you've made it this long, thank you. Please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, and we're going to continue to provide you more content. Now, I will make you a promise. The next couple of videos aren't going to necessarily be all Fast and Furious related, because we have some exciting builds to share with you guys, and those are going to be coming up next. Don't get me wrong, we're jumping back on the bandwagon as we finish up our Too Fast, Too Furious Skyline. There are a few more secret cars. We do have an Eclipse in the works. And the Fast 4 Skyline, that's also coming, but there's another car that we're kind of excited about introducing, but we can't just yet. All right, with all that being said, we'll see you on the next one. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson entered the franchise as Luke Hobbs, the relentless federal agent who could finally go toe-to-toe with Vin Diesel. He was intense, sweaty, and majestic.